when it comes to, how do you actually get out there in an influential way without being on the payroll? I think this is a really interesting question. How does a film like JFK get made? Well, at the time, my father had three Academy Awards to his name, and so, and it had generated enough money from his films, basically Platoon and Born on the Fourth of July, it had been very, very successful films. So there was enough clout for him to do that. I also saw the backlash, the media that came after him, and really how the media basically ridiculed him as a conspiracy theorist. This is in the 90s, right? Like the media basically attacking him, saying, "Oh, it's well done film, but these are the errors," right? Like the fact checkers would have destroyed it and said, "Oh, it's false," right? Well, anything has factual errors in it. But the point is, who is the fact checker to decide definitively that this is false as opposed to true? 100%. Truth is so subjective, right? If we talk about any event, there's going to be six points of view, right? That all have validity, right? So it's really difficult to say definitively what truth is. And even when people talk about facts for the most part are relative, right? And it's very easy to manipulate statistics, right? It's very easy to manipulate so-called facts, based again on the angle that you're looking at something from. It's just the nature of perception of our, how we operate in this reality. 100%. So again, I think that with an example like my father, because I don't know like the ins and outs of every, so people say like Bobby Kennedy or Merritt Malone or controlled opposition, right? And it's like, well, I don't believe that, because they're letting themselves really get crucified at some levels. They're tarnished. They're really getting attacked and slandered. So I can't say that I can't see them as controlled opposition. I feel like if you're truly controlled opposition, no one will say anything about you, right? So they're really attacking you. It's not because you're controlled opposition. It may be that, again, people have different ideologies and perspectives, which is natural. My father's perspective on the pharmaceutical, the pharmaceutical enterprise is very different from mine, right? He may get the military industrial complex. He doesn't see the military industrial medical or big pharma complex and how they work together, right? So that's the point, is that everyone has different perspectives on life. That doesn't make them controlled opposition. That just means that, his worldview is shaped from his influences and his, what he's learned. Mine is shaped from mine, yours is shaped from yours. And I think this is where people oftentimes they get, you have to really look at who's pushing this kind of slander. And are they themselves the ones who are saying, hey, that's controlled opposition? Are they themselves the CIA, bot, or this, basically someone that's muddying the waters by calling others controlled opposition and slandering them? You have to wonder about them. And not always because they're paid, just again, because they have different perspectives. So we don't know. I mean, it really is difficult to say definitively. Even people that have been on payrolls. I mean, look at myself. Like, I was paid by the Russians because I worked for RT, right? Which was Russia Today was a media network. And at the same time, no one ever told me what to report on. No, of course, there was an editor who might say like, oh, let's not focus on that. But for the most part, from my perspective, I never had that experience. My experience was, if I want to do an interview, I did an interview. Mm-hmm. And so, you could say, well, I was paid by the Russians, which is technically true, but that wasn't necessarily influencing the interviews that I wanted to do. And my intention, which was to really use that platform to focus on the American, deep state, the war on Syria, for example, at the time. We did stuff. I did interviews that were, basically accusing Trump of being a Russian agent. And I did interviews like that on RT. And I also did interviews talking about the Clinton Foundation being a total scam and basically money laundering operation. So, again, like you could say, oh, well, you're paid by the Russians, but that didn't necessarily affect the fact that I wanted to tell the stories that I wanted to tell. And I just used that platform to do what I wanted to do.